Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of Rise with Raluca, the podcast. So, this has been a long time coming. I have had the idea and the nudge to have my own podcast, to start a podcast for years now. Well, that and to start a YouTube channel. So, here we are. We are doing both of them. I am stepping into this role, this vision that I had myself for myself for a long time. I Even when I first had the idea, I wasn't able to picture myself actually doing it or being ready to do it because, well, honestly, I had a lot of beliefs to work through. There was a lot of limiting beliefs, a lot of fears, and it was hard for me to talk a lot. It was something that came to me so naturally when I was young, but then building up beliefs and whatever, those things that we do over the years, it became harder and harder for me to express myself. So here we are. We've cleared through a lot of that. And I also feel I needed more time to learn, to experience, to gain more knowledge and personal experience before I could step out into the world and teach in this way and show up in this way. But I do have another podcast. We did start a podcast a year ago. Myself and Lena, we co-host a podcast called Lab of Life, where we talk a lot about spirituality and science and the human experience. So if that interests you, well, it is like similar themes to this podcast. So go on over there and listen to that one as well. We incorporate science and we incorporate the human experience and try to give tools that are practical as possible to help us navigate and help us live through this life easier. But this podcast, Rise with Raluca, so first I will tell you about the name. Rise with Raluca, the intention behind that is, well, rising up. It's kind of elevating ourselves, raising our vibration. It's about letting go of the limiting beliefs, letting go of the old emotions and the energy weighing us down within ourselves, the things that we carry from this lifetime, from childhood, from our ancestral line, from past lives. So we are letting go of all that we can to rise up, to elevate ourselves, to raise our vibration, to step more into who we truly are, because there is something happening energetically right now. I know you probably have heard this. A lot of people talk about this, about how the vibration of our planet is shifting, the energy of our planet is shifting, and we need to be as light as we can energetically to make this transition as easy as possible, and to help our bodies make go through that transition as well. So we just need to be lighter energetically. There's a lot of stuff that we carry, a lot of old paradigms, a lot of old systems and programming that we cannot bring with us to where we are going. So while I do not have a clear vision of where we are going, and I mean, a lot of us are just going by faith here, I know it's going to be lighter, and I know that things are already moving a lot faster and we are seeing that happening. So we need to take care of ourselves so we can keep up with these shifts. Otherwise we just fall apart. But this shift has also been seen when I've spoken with some other homeopaths. So I'm also a homeopath, but with homeopathic remedies, we've been having to use higher and higher potencies than we used to before, because this thing is happening, like everybody's vibration, everybody's energy is higher, so we need more energetic medicine to match up with it. So potencies that were used rarely before, or like back in the day in homeopathy, you would give somebody a remedy and they would repeat it like once a month, and then they would wait and process and have their emotions and go through the symptoms and everything that came up. And now more and more people are needing remedies repeated more often. So whereas it could have been once a month, sometimes they need it daily now. So there's this shift happening that is visible in many different areas and in many different areas of our life. I'm sure you yourself have also seen that things are moving a lot faster. And, like maybe you used to be like bored in your life before, like, oh, nothing's happening. And now it's like 1 week to the next, you don't even, it feels like a whole different lifetime because so much stuff is happening. So that is the intention behind the podcast name. We are rising up. And also, this podcast is mostly geared towards women because that is what I know and I teach from experience. So, in my human design, I am a 6-2 generator, and the 6-2 means that I am meant to lead by example and lead through my experiences. So, I teach from my experiences. So, this podcast is mainly geared towards women and towards women, particularly dealing with good girl programming. So I teach a lot from what I've been going through. So it's like good girl programming and people pleasing and making ourselves small and putting ourselves first and working on not being influenced by our surroundings or people around us. So that is a lot of the work we will be doing in this podcast, because this has been the work that I've been doing on myself. And it's been interesting that the more I did this work on myself, the more I would work through these lessons, the more clients I would have come to me also working through these lessons. Like if I just like had worked through something, if I just cleared something, or even if it's something that I went through a few years ago, somebody will come to me with that exact same experience happening right now. And I'm like, I know exactly what to do and I know how you feel. So we can work through this together, and we would work through the energy of it, the beliefs of it, and the transformation would happen. So I'm meant to lead by example and teach from my experiences. And since I told you about my human design, I'll also tell you about my astrology. So I am a Pisces sun, Cancer moon, Cancer rising. So I'm all water, very flowy, full of emotions, and very sensitive and intuitive and nurturing. So that's basically those water signs. So that has also meant that I've able to pick up on a lot of energy, and intuitively feel what other people are feeling, and just to feel their expectations, and very sensitive to those external cues and to what other people around me are expecting or wanting. So that has also been one of my big lessons that, I'm continuously working through, of being myself and separating my own energy from that of the people around me. And I think that my biggest lesson or goal in this lifetime is to get to that feeling of liberation. And that is to liberate myself from those beliefs and emotions and expectations of people around me, so I can be fully myself. Like to be free, to be fully myself, be fully self expressed, and just like not care of what anybody else thinks. So I think like that feels like the big lesson of this lifetime. And, I've been getting better and better at it, like always working towards it, always working towards that goal. But it's it's a process, it doesn't all happen overnight, because I mean, from where I started, I couldn't even imagine what that person would look like or what she would act like or feel like. So if I was just to like heal all of that overnight, it would have been a shock. We can't even hold that big of a transformation. Alongside that, another big theme has been working through the good girl programming, and this is something that is deeply ingrained, and it's deeply ingrained in all women to different extents. And this is actually what we're going to talk about in the episode today after I do the little introduction. So yeah, the good girl programming has been a big thing, and we're going to dive into this in a little bit. And also, another theme that I've been working through is the hiding. And that's what kept me from showing up in this way for so long, from starting a podcast, which I'm so excited to do now. I'm so excited to be here and to share this information and knowledge, because, oh my gosh, I feel like It's so needed now more than ever. This needs to get out there. We need to work through all these themes. It's really time for everybody to rise, for to set ourselves free from the old paradigm, from the old programming we had. So one of the things I've been working through is hiding, and this was so sneaky because I realized you can show up and still hide. So I would still show up online. I would show up and post. I would show up and teach, but I would hide. And I would hide by being vanilla, by saying the most safe thing I could say, by anticipating how everybody else would feel or think or what their opinions would be. And I would just tone everything down to take everybody else's opinion into consideration, and what would come out would be so safe and so vanilla. And I mean, like, vanilla is great, but you know what I mean. And it just wouldn't even be me. So I was hiding, and now we are working on that. I mean, we have worked on that, and I still hide in some aspects of my life, but we're getting better. We're getting better and better, and we are going out there. So through all this work of doing my own personal healing and then having clients come to me to also work through this stuff with the same kind of themes, the same kind of struggles. So I know there are so many of us out there, so many women working through this programming, working through these beliefs, making ourselves small. One of the things I realized I'm really good at is alchemizing my reality. So I take what is painful, what is triggering, what is uncomfortable, and I feel it, I process it, and then I decide what I want instead, and I watch it shift. And some amazing things have been happening in my life and in my reality as a result of this work. Some have been happening really fast and have been happening really slow. And a lot of times when this happens, it'll like have me saying like, I have no idea what's going on, but this is so different now. And kind of like, there's a lot of times there's been this underlying fear that I'm like, oh well, this can't hold, or like, what is going on? This must not like be forever, because it makes no sense for it to have shifted. But that's the kind of stuff that happens when we shift our energy, because that's where the real world is. So gone are the times where we just like make one step and it equals another step forward in this direction, where everything's just like logical. It's just you do one shift in your energy and you watch how things happen outside of you beyond explanation. I mean, there's an energetic explanation, but like to the mind and the logical mind, where we are used to certain steps yielding certain results, that's not happening anymore. If when you work in the field of energetics, that's just not how things are anymore. So we need everybody to step into this world of magic. All right, I'm just gonna have a sip of water. All right, so this podcast is for women. I'm here to help women step into their power, to heal from the good girl programming, and to break out of the societal and ancestral expectations, and so much more. And I am here to help women break free from all the things that we don't even realize are ruling us until we see them. So I'll do an episode of this and on belief work, but it's kind of like, in the Barbie movie, if you watch that. If not, is this a small spoiler? I don't know. But in the Barbie movie, when they would point out to the other Barbies the things that weren't right, and like all the expectations they had on women and on each other, the expectations of men towards them, and how you couldn't possibly live up to that. And then it just helped them break free because it just pointed out their cognitive dissonance. Like, this is the kind of stuff that we're also going to work through, because sometimes we don't even realize what is happening. So we need something to like trigger it, to point out that it doesn't make sense, and then it brings awareness to it, and then we can heal through it, because awareness is just huge. It's the first step to healing, and it's a big step to healing. And not to say that this is just an issue for women. Men also have a lot of belief work and healing to do from what has been placed on them by society. Like what has been placed on men has not been fair either. What the expectations that they have on them through family and ancestry and whatever they might have gone through in their past lives, like they also have a lot. We all need to heal. This is for men and women because the way things were do not have space in where we are going. We cannot live by the old rules. We cannot live through the push and the pull and the forcing and the shoving the emotions down and putting on masks and everything else that we were doing. Like with how fast things are going, we don't have the energy anymore to keep up. Like we don't have the energy to invest to keep up with that fake stuff. Like it's going to be a thing of the past. So we all need this work, men and women. But my experience is teaching and sharing this from the women's experience, like human experience. So I will share what I know. And if you feel drawn to this podcast, just to trust it's for a reason. So today, we are going to introduce the concept of good girl programming, which is a big one. I feel like this is connected to like so many things that women deal with. Everything is connected all together. So good girl programming is a big aspect of this. And it affects all women on some level. So this has touched every woman, the good girl programming. Hold on, one more sip of coffee. All right, so just think of how our society is, how society portrays women in television, in movies, in TV shows. Think about your parents and grandparents and what you were taught growing up. Think of what was expected of them when they were growing up. And also remember that trauma and traumatic experiences, whether they be emotional or whatever, didn't have a chance to heal. This can be passed down for 7 generations through your family line. So just take a moment and think of what our ancestors lived like and what they must have gone through 7 generations ago and what the expectations were on women then, and just the whole thing, the whole dynamic. And think of how that can pass down through each generation. Every generation has an opportunity to heal things, and each generation has, like, believe that each generation has gone through their own healing. But whatever is not healed continues to be passed down until somebody just decides that, "Oh, I'm going to heal as much as I possibly can in this lifetime." And I think that's a lot. That's what a lot of women came to do, not just women and men. That's what a lot of people, because during this time, we have a lot of opportunities and a lot of space to be able to do this type of healing, to be able to do this type of emotional work. The generations before that, before us, might not have had these opportunities, these expectations. Like, think about how therapy was looked at until not too long ago. And when people are focusing mostly on survival and just getting the bills paid and getting all those responsibilities of having a home and a roof over your head and food, you don't always have time to do that extra work, this extra healing, the emotional healing. And we are lucky in this generation, in this time, that we have more space for this type of healing, that we can be more flexible with our schedules, with our work schedules, that we have so many things readily available to us to teach us this type of healing. Like, it's available online. There's so many practitioners now out there, so many healing practitioners, and therapy is more widely accepted. Energy work is more widely accepted. Like, this is the time. We chose this time for a reason, and there's a lot of healing that needs to happen right now. And I am grateful that we have the space and the resources available so abundantly that we can do this work. Like, even through podcasts, through YouTube channels, through free meditations. There's just so much out there. If you want the healing, you find it. So, good girl programming. What is good girl programming? This is the programming that has been so ingrained in women on what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a daughter, what it means to be a mother, what it means to be a partner, a wife, whatever. It's just ingrained. And like I said, a lot of us carry this. Everybody carries this, but to different extents. So the good girl programming can whisper things like, we need to put others first. We need to always be giving. That good girls are expected not to talk back. They need to be obedient. They need to be liked. They need to be humble. They shouldn't ask for too much. That they need to be quiet and agreeable. But then that's also a double-edged sword, because women should also be confident and have an opinion, as long as it doesn't trigger somebody too much. But, if somebody's too quiet and agreeable, it can be boring. So confidence is also beautiful. And to be pretty, but not too pretty, so it doesn't attract like negative attention. And there's all these unrealistic expectations on being a wife and a mother, of doing all the things around the house while also having a job, while also being a present partner and being happy while doing it all. And honestly, it's just unrealistic to have all of these things placed on somebody. And no wonder so many women are just stressed out and overworked and overburdened and just lost touch with their intuition and their femininity and all the beautiful things that are being a woman. And it's also unrealistic for men. Like, don't get me wrong, they also have a lot of job stress. And we're all often taught not to be emotional and not to be sensitive, and kind of choose to push everything down and not show emotions, because they're just there to be, what's the word? They're just there to be the provider. So that's a lot of unpacking that needs to happen there as well, because it's just, that is not what it is anymore. Things need to change in our system and the way we do things and the way we live our daily lives. And we will dive into more of this, but throughout our time together. But for now, we're just talking about the good girl stuff. With the good girl programming, a lot of people also, it's like this ingrained belief that if you are not a good girl, if you don't act like a good girl, then you are not a good person. The good girl also makes choices based on the opinions of others. The good girl programming like makes us put others first at our own expense and then feel resentful after. So that is what happens when you put others first at your own expense. If you have to put yourself first, like no matter what, that is what it is. You have to put yourself first. That is your responsibility, especially like when there's adults involved. When you have kids, like sometimes you have to put your kids first, but also make sure you also always take care of yourself. But you should not put other people first before yourself. You have to put yourself first. And if there is resentment, that is a big sign that you are overgiving, that you are giving too much of yourself that you don't actually have. So not saying no and taking care of yourself is not being a bad person. It's not being a good girl, but it's not being a bad person. Your responsibility is to take care of yourself. The girl has a hard time making her own decisions and knowing what she wants, and she often waits for the universe or an external thing to happen to make the decision for her, so she doesn't have to decide. She'll be like, I don't know what needs to happen, so we'll just let things work themselves out. And she also makes choices based on receiving love and acceptance from others. So she'll make choices based on what other people expect of her, to make sure she is part of that group, that she's not kicked out. She also hides part of herself depending on who's around. and she calculates what she is going to say based on what she thinks others will think of her. She has a hard time saying no. She takes on a caretaker role. She does all those things because she craves the external love and acceptance. And the thing is, she forgot how to give herself that. She forgot how to give herself that love. She also anticipates everyone's needs and acts in accordance to them. Any of these things, like if you feel a pure, full-hearted desire to do that, like that, if it's coming from a place of love and joy, that's not being a good girl. That's being like following your love. But if these things are done because you feel like you should do them and not because there's something you want to do, then that is a good girl thing. Another thing is going with the flow of what other people want and not asserting anything that she wants to do, and kind of shoving down the critical thinking just to appease others, like doing things for love and acceptance instead of critical thinking. And she also has this need to be perfect at everything, and that will stop her from doing a lot of things, from pursuing her dreams, from just moving forward and making steps and being messy, because she has that need to be perfect and she needs to make sure that it's perfect before she does it. And the thing is that you can't be perfect. So this is a very hard thing for the good girl to work through. So this all led to her being disconnected from her intuition and her body's wisdom, all of that, pushing her own needs aside to appease to other people. So this is a big thing to unpack, and just sit with yourself, see if any of those things like resonated with you, if any of them like hit home, if you do any of those things. Because good girl programming, if you're needs a few more things to help you figure out if this is something that's coming up for you. It can have you feeling like you're deeply afraid of disappointing others. You struggle with setting boundaries in relationship and at work. You feel like you're a burden if you do set a boundary and express what you need. And this gives you a lot of anxiety. And you struggle with a voice inside your head that tells you to do more. And no matter what you do, it's never enough. You feel resentful towards other people because they don't do the things that are the proper thing to do, or the things that you have done. So that is a sign of overextending, that you feel resentful towards other people that are not doing what you did. You never feel good enough. You feel anxious to disagree with somebody or with their point of view. You feel anxious about saying no. You feel anxious about upsetting somebody, and you are afraid to ask for what you need. And when you do receive the help, or when you accept the help or support that you needed, you feel you need to return it, and return it even more. Like you need help more in return. You need to be there even more. Did any of those resonate with you? Are you feeling any of that within you? Just sit with it, journal with it, see what comes up. See if there have been any instances where you have noticed those beliefs or those patterns within yourself, and see if that triggered you in any way. If you feel like I am wrong in saying this stuff or that I'm cold in saying this stuff, just to see whatever comes up for you. Because my goal is to help women go from the good girl to the liberated woman. So we're going to talk about now about what the liberated woman is and what her energy feels like. And this is going to be a lot shorter because she is just an essence, and I think you can tap into her because she is already you. This is already part of you. This is who you really are deep down inside. So the liberated woman knows who she is, knows her priorities and goals and what she desires. She is confident in her own decisions. She will choose disappointing others over letting herself down and disappointing herself. She loves and accepts herself. And then the mirror outside of her, like the world, mirrors that back to her. So she loves and accepts herself as she is. So when she goes out into the world, that mirrors that back to her, that love and acceptance and matching that confidence energy. It's like the way people react to her changes, and the way she receives love and support from the universe changes. Like, she receives a lot more readily. She fills up her cup first and then gives from a place of overflow with a full heart. She expresses herself and her opinion. She owns her creative ideas, powers, and unique gifts. And she is fully and unapologetically herself. So she embraces all parts of herself. She embraces all parts of the feminine, like the wild side, the messy side, the like the flowy feminine side, the like sexy side, all of it. She embraces all of it and expresses that unapologetically, and she lets herself be angry. She expresses all the emotions, because the other thing with the good girls is they were not allowed to be angry, so they have a hard time even expressing that, even allowing that to be felt. They don't even know when they're angry or what to do with it. So that is all of these things that we want to work through. And the liberated woman, she is really deeply a part of you. She is there. I know you can tap into that energy if you just like take a deep breath. And if you just pictured yourself, like, who would you be if you weren't afraid of judgment, if you're in such a safe space that nothing that you do or say or act out, like, it couldn't make anybody love you any less. If you trusted that you would be loved no matter what, you would be accepted no matter what, who would you be? I bet she'd be a little wild and messy. I bet she'd be a little angry. I bet she'd have some emotions to let out right now. I bet she would say no, and she would ruffle some feathers. And I know there's fear around that, and we're gonna work through it all. So, how do we get to her? How do we get to that liberated woman from where we are right now, from whatever aspect of the good girl you might be struggling with? So, the first thing is to remember that we are her, that embodying her just requires you to let go of the stuff that is in the way. So embodying her just requires you to let go of the stuff that is in the way. So that is the limiting beliefs, that is the unprocessed emotions, that is the programming that we carry. So we just, as it comes to our awareness, we are just working on letting it go, and you embody her more and more. We get to her by becoming aware of our patterns and our beliefs, and by naming them. So, by naming the underlying belief or what is really there. So, for example, um, like, I have to help others at my own expense, because if I don't, then I won't be loved. And if I'm not loved, then I'm abandoned. And if I'm abandoned, I will die alone. So it's usually like something like that. We just keep going until we get to the bottom belief. And then by naming it, that can help. But we also work on releasing and reprogramming our fears. So this is something we do in one-on-one work, or this is something you can do through meditations, through journaling them out. You write them all out, the fears that are there. You state that you want to release them, and then you bring in new beliefs. We also get closer to her, to the liberated woman, by noticing our fears and doing it anyways. We notice the fear and do the scary thing anyways. So we notice the fear, and then we set that boundary, and we might be freaking out while we're doing it. We might have a little bit of anxiety, but you are strengthening that muscle. So we notice the fear and we walk ourselves through it anyways. So we take these little steps of constantly choosing ourselves and making decisions to choose ourselves. And we reflect on what is happening. So it's a lot of inner work. We do this step by step, but we get there. So every decision we make to choose ourselves, every decision we make to heal this programming, we get closer to her. And honestly, this work benefits everyone. It doesn't just benefit you, it benefits your relationships, it benefits your family line, because when somebody in the family line heals, it helps future generations as well as previous generations. And by you doing this work, you are also setting an example for other people. So it creates a ripple effect. And this honestly benefits everyone. So I know sometimes people are afraid of saying no, they're afraid of letting people down. But honestly, trust that this is an infinite universe. And if you cannot be there to be the one that helps somebody, somebody else will be able to help them. Somebody that has the energy and has the resources. And when you are able to help somebody, you will, when you have the energy and you have the resources. And also, sometimes it's better, what that person might need is for them to help themselves. So it's all connected. Everything in the universe communicates with one another. Nobody will be left high and dry. Nobody will be abandoned. Nobody will be left alone. But you need to put yourself first. And other people need to learn to put themselves first. Because if everybody is working on themselves, healing themselves, putting themselves first, and they only help each other from a place of overflow, from a place of having that energy, can you feel what that difference is in that energy, in that help, in that gift of presence and help, of whatever it is, what the difference is from somebody giving it to you from a place of just love and having that energy of wanting to be there and wanting to do that full-heartedly, versus somebody doing that out of obligation. You can feel that. I know you can, especially if you're listening right to this podcast. I know you can feel that. I know you know the difference between the quality of energy. So don't be afraid to say no. And don't be afraid of letting other people down, because keep the big vision in sight. Even if it's hard right now, it's helping you and it's helping a lot of other people in the long run. So we are here for the long journey of healing. The Good Girl programming is an underlying thing that I personally believe impacts all women to varying degrees. And in this podcast, we're going to talk about different aspects of this and more. We will be talking about the mind and the body and the spirit connections, and how all our healing begins with ourselves, and the capacity and power we have to heal ourselves. Like, we have so much power to heal ourselves just through the inner work, just through awareness, just through following our intuition. We have so much power to do this, and everything is connected. Everything is connected through a thread of life. And by understanding one thing, we can understand many others and see how they all mirror each other. So by healing one aspect of this, one aspect of the Good Girl programming, one aspect of yourself, you're going to see the thread and mirror in other parts of your life and how they are all connected. And honestly, it's just amazing. When you start healing these different parts of yourself, the whole world mirrors it back to you. Your relationships will mirror it back to you. Your work will mirror it back to you. Your abundance, just everything mirrors it back to you. And the way you show up in your life is different. It changes because you have changed on an energetic level. So this work is truly powerful. It's so amazing. I've been doing this for years, and I still marvel at the changes that happen within myself and that happen to people around me, and to my clients, and how fast things can change. So stick around. We're going to dive more and more into this work. And if you enjoy this podcast, make sure you leave a rating and share it with a friend that might also benefit from it. All right, I'll see you next time.